Tonight on The Al Denson Show, join Al and his guests, speaker Dave Moore, gospel-centric recording artist Woody Rock, answering your email questions, Dr. Tim Clinton, Jeff Calhoun, and the Al Denson Show Band. Now, here's your host, Al Denson.
Welcome to the Al Denson Show. Guys, if you've never tuned in, my name is Al Denson. We call this the Al Denson Show because we're doing our best right here to get parents and their kids to kind of communicate a little bit, to kind of talk about things that they face in their daily lives. I want to introduce my sidekick to you. This is Jeff Calhoun, the Al Denson Show Band. Y'all give them a hand. They did a good job. Woo! Now, Jeff, we're actually talking on this show about marriage on the rocks. Now, we're talking about marriage on the rock here. Let me explain it to you. See, there's so many marriages breaking up today and stuff like that. But you remember when you got married?
Absolutely.
Remember that feeling?
I'll never forget it.
Which funny, man. I was doing this. You know, I like to come out with a story or something like that. I was doing a little research. I found this little thing. And this describes a lot of marriages. Okay, got that? Now, this is a husband talking to his wife when she's sick, like with a cold or something. Listen to this. It's his first year of marriage. This is what the husband's saying. Honey, I'm really worried about my little girl. Now, you know what? You got such a bad cold, sweetheart. Listen to me. All these bad viruses going around, here's what I've done. I'm not taking no chances because I love you so much. I've got a private room reserved at the hospital. We're going to take you there and get you checked in and make sure you feel really nice. That's the first year of marriage. Second year of marriage. Listen, darling, it sounds like that cough's kind of getting bad, so I went ahead and called the doctor. Now, listen, you need to go to bed like a good girl, and I'll take care of everything else. That's the second year. Third year of marriage. Honey, maybe you better lie down. There's nothing like a little bit of rest when you're feeling lousy. Don't worry, man. I'll bring you something. You know where the canned soup is? I'll go get it and bring you something to eat. Fourth year of marriage. Now look, dear, it's time to be sensible. After you feed the kids, do the dishes, mop the floor, you probably ought to lay down and get some rest. Fifth year of marriage. Honey, take some aspirin. You sound horrible. Sixth year of marriage. Listen, why don't you just gargle or something instead of barking like a seal all night? You're keeping me up, okay? Seventh year of marriage. For Pete's sake, stop the sneezing. What are you trying to do? Give me pneumonia? You know, sometimes it seems like the curve just goes and goes and goes and goes. But listen, you know what? Apparently a lot of marriages must be like that because it says that 6 out of every 10 people that get married now end up in divorce. So you know what we did? We said this. We need to go talk to kids. Now, kids, listen. You might not think this show is for you, but I'm telling you it is, because you know what? The second most decision you'll ever make in your life is who you're going to marry. So we went out and asked these kids this question. Why in the world do you think so many of your parents are getting divorces these days? And here's what the kids had to say.
Because they don't get along and they argue and don't do what's right.
I think they're getting divorced because they're getting together too fast, and they think that they know everything and, oh yeah, it's going to work out, and it's not.
They struggle a lot with each other, and you know, they probably didn't agree with God at first when they first got married.
Because they marry for the wrong reasons. Like, they marry because how the person looks or how much money they have, or you know, that kind of thing, and it's just lust, it's not love.
You know, Chuck Swindoll says that building a great marriage is kind of like remodeling your house. And here's why. There's 3 reasons. One, you know what, when you remodel a house, it's a whole lot messier than you ever thought it would be. It costs you a whole lot more money than you thought it would. And it always takes longer than they said it would. Now listen, apparently that must be true because marriages are falling apart all the time. And it seems like in America we are not willing to not only pay the price, but to take the time to have a great marriage. You know what? My good friend David Moore's coming up on here. Now, kids, I don't want you to go anywhere because listen to this. He's going to give you 3 incredible tips to know if you're really in love. So listen, don't go away. We'll be right back here on the Al Denson Show. Hang in there with
Because
us.
because people don't have love. They don't have the love of God in their families, and they don't really know what true love is.
I think that they're just hopping into things. Like, they don't know what they want. They just like want something, and they have a good friend that's their girlfriend and junk, and they think that they should just hop into marriage.
I think that people are getting married today because they're looking for something to fill their heart. They don't know. They don't have the true God.
Well, we're talking about marriage on the rock right here on the Al Denson Show, and I'm joined by my special guest, Dr. Tim Clinton, the president of the American Association of Christian Counselors. And you know, we're talking about it. It seems like marriages are falling apart all over the place.
They are, Al. Yeah, I mean, 40 to 50% of today's marriages are going to wind up in divorce.
I read a stat the other day, and a parent even alluded to it. She said, I got a question for you guys. I read something the other day that said that the divorce rate among churches is about as high as divorce rates just in the world. Yeah. Why is that?
George Barna came out with that report not long ago, and it was pretty sobering to everybody in the church because, my goodness, people in the church shouldn't be getting divorced. Yeah. You have to be careful how you interpret statistics for a moment. That's why I say step back just for a second. It could be that people who are going through the brokenness of a divorce are going back to the church and showing up in it. You have to be careful how you interpret. But the bottom line is this. I'd say, you know what, it's probably pretty true in this sense. Marriages are probably under more distress or duress than probably any other time in history. We're stressed out. There's so much competing for our affection in our relationships. Sure. And people are just, they're cold, they're distant. They don't feel, the heart cry in a marriage is, I just want somebody to love me. Yes, but that person's not loving me, Al. Sure. And so, that being true, we better do something in the church. And the church is largely ignoring this issue.
Well, I actually heard that the church really has no clue about how bad this issue is.
You know, I think that's true. Not long ago, I wrote a book called Before a Bad Goodbye, How to Turn Your Marriage Around, and I was shocked at how little was out there to help people save their marriages. Yeah. Yet, every day, countless Christian leaders and people all over our country, all over the world, just broken in their marriages.
Tim, you know my heart, the reason we do the Al Denson Show, man, I love kids. Yeah. I love kids with all my heart, and the divorce, does that affect kids pretty hard?
Yeah. Psychologist Lee Salk wrote this in one of his works. He said, divorce hurts kids, period. That's all he did. He just said, period. Judith Wallerstein and others have shown conclusively that divorce just kills kids. It rips their heart out, I'm telling you. And here's the amazing thing. Probably about 50% of kids who grow up today are going to watch their mom and dad divorce.
You know, we got an email from a kid that said, my parents just went through it. And I'd never put anybody through that kind of pain that it put our family through. Then they asked the question, hey, Al, how can I keep from doing that when I'm an adult?
Al, I applaud a kid who says that, because we're finding that if you grow up in a home where you've seen mom and dad divorce, you're more likely to divorce. And the only way we're going to arrest that process...
But hold on, why is that? Why are you more likely to do that?
You know, I think it's just because of brokenness in relationship. You experience someone who, quote, seems like they have abandoned you, and it doesn't make sense. A lot of kids walk through these scenarios believing that they're to blame. They get caught up in the pain of all this stuff, and they blame themselves. That's the tragedy here. These kids are owning this. What's even more sobering is these children who go through divorced homes wind up grieving as much or more, say, than mom or dad do as a result of the broken marriage, and they don't have anybody to help them. And so they're walking through it by themselves. And so if they don't see it for what it really is and work through that pain in a healthy way, Al, it continues to fester in their life, and it will affect their own marriage.
But a kid that comes from a divorced family can have a phenomenal future, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the answer to that is, but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to affect their marriage.
Right.
If you step back and say, you know what, let me understand what the dynamics of love are all about. You know, I don't want to be like Dad. I don't want to be like Mom. Sure. Whatever it was, God, help me to be different. Let me give you a strong recommendation. I'm a big advocate for this. If you're thinking about getting married, go through premarital counseling, period. Don't miss that window. It's a great preventative. It'll save you a lot of grief, I'm telling you, a lot of heartache, big time. Go through it. Step up to the plate. And then, most importantly, chase after marriage God's way. I like the title of this program, Al, Marriage on the Rock. I mean, marriage is a God-ordained institution, period.
That's right.
That's it. And when you build it His way, you're going to be blessed.
When you build it on the rock, the foundation will stand. Hey, listen, look, I understand, and you're a teenager going, well, they're talking about marriage, so they must be talking about parents. You need to stay tuned now, because we're also including you in this thing, because listen, we've got an incredible guy who's, you know, he's got a perspective on this you hadn't heard before. His name is Dr. David Moore out of California. You're going to dig it. So stay tuned right here on the Al Denson Show. We'll be right back.
Most of them are fake Christians anyways, because they just like fake it to make it, because their friends are doing it. They just want to look cool in front of them.
Maybe because they don't really know God the way they should.
The people that are like going to church and stuff, like they're just going to church just to go to church. Like, so I just think that basically the people that are in the world and going to church basically like in the same, like having the same walk with God, because like half of them that go to church are just fake in the first place. So.
Welcome back to the Al Denson Show. You know, we're talking about marriage on the rocks. So, man, if you look around you, you read the papers, especially if you look at the entertainment section and all that stuff, you realize, man, marriages are falling apart all over the place. Well, my next guest, his name is David Moore. Man, he pastors one of the biggest churches in America, one of the top 25 churches in America out there in California. He's got a great radio show called More on Life. Airs all over the nation. But I think one of the greatest things about him is he understands how things work in people's lives, and he understands marriage and how God's principles apply to our daily lives in every facet of our life. But he's got a great wife and great kids and been married for a long, long time, and he understands the good parts and the bad parts and how to deal with them. And we've asked him to be right here just to shed a little help on it, so please do me a favor. Welcome to the Al Denson Show, Pastor David Moore. How you doing, man? Yep. Everybody's looking going, that's what that guy said, you know, because they hear you on the radio all the time, but they have no clue what you look like.
Everybody thinks I'm short with dark hair.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely. My wife said, you don't understand, because my wife knows David very well because they're out in California together. That's where my wife's from, and she says, man, he's the coolest guy. You're the only pastor, really, that I know that drives a Harley and all that kind of stuff, so it makes it kind of fun. But, you know, when we talk about marriages, the stats, you know, say that, and it's like when new marriages take place, the stats say that of new marriages, 60% of those new marriages are going to end in divorce. Now, why is that?
Well, the why is the toughest question on the planet.
Sure.
The current divorce rate is 54.8%. You add to that another 6.7 million couples that are separated,
okay,
and that puts it at about 60% failure rate. You add to that the fact that many marriages, the people are little more than roommates, just kind of going through the motions. And it becomes such a sad thing because God designed us for intimacy. We were created for connectedness, and we don't do well alone. And of course, the most connected we can be is when you have that bonding of the human soul and spirit and flesh, what God designed us to experience. And it is tragic, Al. It's so few ever really find that. And the reason, I think, bottom line, self-centeredness. We go into these marriages, what can I get out of it? How can she meet my needs? How can he meet my needs? And as a result,
you live in the self world.
You live in the self world, and it will destroy a relationship faster than anything else.
Well, the world looks at the churches, and they say, okay, you know, the churches, they live their life on the Bible. They should have all the answers. But statistics say now that there's just as many divorces inside the church as there are outside the church.
Yeah, in the global church, that's true. The good news on the flip side of it is, Al, is for married couples who attend church regularly, who pray together regularly, and read the Bible independently, that divorce rate drops to 1 in 1,100.
Wow.
So there's a spiritual factor that is really essential.
That's awesome.
And of course, that doesn't happen, the reading in in a lot of families, even though they go to church or they're church people. So there's a spiritual dynamic that should never be overlooked.
Big time.
Essential. The other thing I think, Al, is that couples, well, you've been asked, how do you know you're in love?
Oh, yeah. Is this where the kids, okay, kids, pay attention, get a notepad, write this down. Here it comes.
Well, how do you know you're in love? And the answer is always, you just know.
Yeah.
Because we can't define it. Surveys across the country have shown that every age group believes the way to make a marriage last a lifetime is to be in love. Then, when asked to define love, what are the ingredients of love, people have no clue.
Sure. They always say, how do I know if this is the one for me?
Yeah. And there are 3 things that are essential.
Here goes.
They all start with P because I'm a preacher, you know how.
Okay,
so
gotta have that.
First element of real, long-lasting love is passion. And we don't often talk about that in the church.
Yeah.
And yet, the Bible devoted an entire book to the subject of passion, Song of Songs. You know, if you're over 18, you can read it.
Absolutely.
It's a racy, no kidding kind of deal on the passion that a couple has to experience. That's one ingredient. Okay. The second ingredient of love that makes it last a long time is partnership. In the partnership, the concept is we are in this together. We live together, we die together, we go the distance together, we are friends. It's kind of the friendship factor.
Absolutely.
And then the third is the promise. And this is where we make a promise and we keep it.
That's where the commitment comes in.
Yeah. It was Solomon who said, many a person proclaims their loyalty, but who can find a faithful friend? And he was right. And those 3 ingredients are what keep love alive. Wow. The scientific community tells us that the feeling of love is chemical, biochemical thing that's cooked up in the brain that lasts at best 2 years. And if that's the case, then for love to last a lifetime, the secret is to fall in love with the same person over and over and over again. How do you do that? Yeah. Promote passion, partnership, and keep your promises. And in the arena of those three elements, as they are balanced and fed regularly, love grows. Goes a distance.
David, we get tons of emails asking us all kind of questions, and honestly, some of them are very difficult to answer. And I think we hear, and you touched on it when you were talking about different statistics there. You touched on it, but there's a lot of people who, let's say they're Christians, and say, "Okay, I'm not going to get divorced." So they don't legally go get a piece of paper and say they're divorced, but they honestly live separate lives. They might even sleep in separate rooms. They're technically divorced from each other, even though they're inside the same house. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
What do you say to those people to give them hope?
It takes two. One person in a couple can't make it happen. Wow. It's two people who come to a conclusion that we will put energy and effort into this marriage. Where do you put your energy and effort? It's real simple. That's the easy part. Passion, partnership, promise.
We've established that.
Those are just essential. And partnership, for example. The average married couple, after 1 year of marriage, spends 37 minutes a week in conversation.
You're not kidding.
I am not kidding you. 37 minutes a week. Now, UCLA Communication Department tells us that of all the things that we hear or that are said to us, we only hear half of them, we only understand half of that, we only believe half of that, only remember half of that. That's 6.25%. What's 6.25% of 37 minutes? I don't know the math, but it's not much.
It's not very much. And then my wife says I have selective hearing anyway, so
it's a male deal.
We're down in there, big time bad.
We all have that selective hearing. But partnership can't grow if you're not communicating.
Yeah, sure.
And so couples have to sit down and start to talk. I think play together is essential. That's how the partnership is built.
Yeah,
over the years, Sonia and I have been married 27 years. You said a long, 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 long time.
Yeah.
27 years, and we ride motorcycles together. We scuba dive, skydive. I mean, there's a list of probably 50 different things that we do together. In the context of that, the partnership grows.
Yeah.
And so if a couple is willing to work on the passion part of it, the partnership, usually the partnership has to come first, and then make those promises. Show up when you say you're going to show up.
I say this from personal observation real quick, and you were saying that when I sang at your church out in California, I remember sitting on the stage, and I was kind of waiting for you to come in. And I looked down there, and you weren't backstage like most pastors. You're sitting out in the congregation with your people. And I was amazed that on the front row, there was your entire family. And my first thought was, isn't that cool he's sitting with all his kids? And my second thought was, that guy must have a good marriage to be having all his kids all around him. And sometimes, it's hard, isn't it, to hold a marriage together sometimes. Sure. And look, we're going to take a break in a minute because I just want to intersect some music and let you think about some stuff while we're kind of going down. Woody Rock is great. You're going to dig them when they come back. But then Dave and I are going to come back and kind of wrap this thing up for you and try to see if we can't give you some principles to live by right here on the Al Denson Show. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
This is just a song to remind each and every one of us to count our blessings. Because no matter what we go through, there's always somebody else who's doing worse off than what we are, right? So check it out. Stop, take a look around. Look at all the things you have. Some don't even know their mother. And some have never seen their dad. Now my mama always told me, you may not have the things you want, but if you have the things you need, thank the Lord, don't give up and move on. Cause no matter what you go through, there's somebody doing worse than you. Yeah. For what you have. To have someone to love in a world so cold and so dark. To you it may just seem that that what you have is not enough. Take a good look at the news. Some people don't even have food. No, so you better be thankful. So you better be thankful, yeah. Oh, so you could be worse off, yeah. Worse off than what you are. My family and my friends. I just want to somebody worse off than you. What you have. Whoa. Say Thank you. God bless.
Guys, Woody, unbelievable. Woody Rock right here on the Alvin Show. Listen, I want him to learn a little bit about you guys. I know you got a brand new gospel record coming out called Soul Music, and we're excited about being able to grab that record. But tell us a little bit about where you came from, the group you founded, and stuff like that. Tell us a little bit about where Woody Rock has been in music.
I started singing when I was 3 years old. My first song was I Don't Feel No Ways Tired by James Cleveland. And I sung in church, but I never really took it seriously. Then when I got in high school, I started singing like New Edition songs, Jodeci songs. Sure. And we got a group called Drew Hill. Okay. And we were lucky and blessed to win some awards. A couple people like us. But the Lord always had
hold on. A couple people liked you guys, Drew Hill, man. You
sold
like 4 million records, won like 5 Billboard things, got a couple Soul Train, man, you've done all that kind of stuff, right?
Uh-oh. Yes, sir.
And you're saying a couple people liked you. So how in the world do you go from doing all that? What made that come to, you know what, I'm going to make a record that honors God?
I just wasn't getting the fulfillment that I felt that I should be getting from putting all my hard work out there. And I asked the Lord why, and he said just as plainly as we're standing here talking that I was never going to get the feeling I was looking for until I was singing for him.
I got to tell you, man, I appreciate that. Now listen, those of you that are watching, stay tuned. We're going to talk just a little bit about Marriage on the Rocks when we come back, so don't go away. We'll be right here. You know, as we wrap up this edition of the Alvin Show, I got to thank Woody Rock, man. What a great job that is. Kind of got that slow groove to it, you know. At the same time, Pastor Dave Moore, you know, he's been there and done that a lot of times, man. He's had so many people come across. I've asked him to stay on and just help me close this edition of the Alvin Show. Pastor Dave, let me ask you a question real quick. You being a pastor of such a big church, I know you have people come to you all the time and say, you know, my marriage is breaking up. What do I do? And I just want you to cuff it right out here and give us some steps. What do you tell people to do?
Well, Al, I always have to start with the fact that it takes two. You know, one person can't do it alone, and it has to be a couple thing. Then the next step is to be willing to admit that counseling would be a good idea. Now, the interesting thing is that often I find that the woman wants to go to counseling and the guy doesn't. And sometimes you just need to, guys, be a man and put aside the fears and the macho stuff and get into that counseling session for the sake of your wife and the relationship. mean, it's worth fighting for.
And their kids a lot of times.
Yeah.
For the kids.
Absolutely. And you know, couples that have been divorced and remarried, only 10% claim that they're better off enjoying life more second time around.
10%, that's it?
That's it. So it's a whole lot better to work at the thing. Now, for couples that don't want to do the counseling thing, maybe they can't afford it or it's a little too threatening, a tape series on marriage.
Yeah, you got a great one on marriage, by the way.
Yeah,
just to let
thanks. It's called Love for a Lifetime.
Yeah.
But we found that couples can sit in a car, drive, listen to a tape. It's non-threatening.
Sure.
The person on the radio or the CD doesn't know who they are, so
Right.
you know there may be a few elbows going of,
Sure.
hey, did you hear that?
Set the front seat, back seat, but anyway.
You could do that. But it's a safe environment, and it's a way to listen, get some good input, and then at the end of the tape or the CD, you just ask, what are you feeling?
Yeah.
Because the whole issue is getting back in touch with those feelings. So what are you feeling? And then you lead to what are you thinking? And then it's a real simple, how could I do this better for you?
Sure.
And if you've got two people both turning to each other and saying, how can I do this better for you? You're going to make it.
Sure, absolutely. You know, I asked Dave to let me talk about the last point because that was really important to me and important to him as well. But I want to stress this to you, is that also when you feel like you're right in the midst of a storm in your marriage and you don't, you know, you feel like you're face down. That's the points where God is holding his arms out wide saying, just come to me. Just come to me. And a lot of times when you can't find peace in your marriage, it's because maybe you need to run to God and just have some peace with God. And I want to encourage you men too, especially. God's requiring us to be the spiritual leader of the home. He says that in his word, which means that we have to be right with God. And I want to encourage you guys to ask yourself this question. Is my marriage falling apart because my relationship with my Father is not right? And I think when we start looking at all that, you'll find out that if you take that thread of Christ runs through every single area of your life, including your marriage. I want to give you this book. See, it says Marriage on the Rock. We're giving this to you because we want to help. We want to change that divorce rate. We want to help. So here's how you get this. You log into our website at www.aldenson.com. You check on the TV icon. When you do that, you'll see all the books, and here's one of them titled Marriage on the Rocks. Just click it. You can download it. It'll be there in about 3 minutes, and you can start reading it because we want you guys' marriages to be successful. Hey, thank you for watching the Al Denson Show. Keep it tuned in. We'll see you back here next time.
We want to hear from you. Write us at The Al Denson Show, Box 220, Grapevine, Texas 76099. Or email us at aldenson@aol.com. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in next time to The Al Denson Show. The Al Denson Show is an outreach of Celebration Ministry.